Hi everybody, Laura here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a fun project to share with you featuring the Rosemal Reflections suite that just came out by the Greetery, part of their marketplace collection. And so there's several products in this suite. There is an embossing folder, a stamp set. Here is the Rosemal Reflections Jumbo. It's kind of a standalone floral die. The back of the packaging shows you how beautiful it is. And now this is a coordinating die to the stamp set, I believe. And then here's a smaller Rosemal Reflections detail. And then there's also a sentiment set. And I love these arched sentiments. There is an arched die that cuts these out as well. And I'm going to be pairing this with the Capsule Basics die set. This came out the last release, and it's such a staple. I've used it so much already that I'm going to show you at the end of this video how I decided to repackage it with a magnetic sheet because I've started to wear out the packaging. You know, when you use something so much and you could tell, okay, this is going to be a staple. It deserves to be on a magnetic sheet. Okay, so I'm stamping the border with Stardust ink, and my little oval panel is cream cardstock. So Stardust on cream. If I forget to mention a color or a product, everything will be listed in my description box. So the border just gets rotated and stamped on the opposite side. So this fits perfectly on the largest oval of the Capsule Basics die set. Okay, again, stamping that with Stardust. And then now the back of the packaging kind of has a guide of where to stamp the florals. It also gives you some color inspiration. I'm going to do red blooms just like this imagery here. And so they're kind of labeled in little groups. I'm going to start with Sorbet ink. So it's kind of a layering bloom. There's three steps to layer up the bloom. First, I'm stamping the top and the bottom. They're both the same bloom with Sorbet ink. And then you're going to need a different, smaller bloom for the left and the right side. Sorry about my hair getting in the way, but see, here's what happened. I decided to use an acrylic block. And whenever I use an acrylic block, I really got to get over top of it. And I always said this, I should get a hairnet. But normally when I'm using the Misty, you can kind of sit back and not get in the way. But when you kick it old school, with an acrylic block, and then you got to get over top. So here's the second layer with Poppy. And now here's where I made a mistake. This is actually not the right stamp to use for the next layer. This is supposed to be for the left and right one. It's too small. So I figured that out, and I went ahead and just stamped over it with the correct second layer. You can hardly tell that I made the mistake. And then the smaller bloom on the left and right. Again, stamping these with Poppy, and then the extra little detail on these flowers as well. Holy smokes. What was I thinking with the hair? Okay, I'm just not going to talk about it. Let's just pretend it's not happening. Okay, last one, Cranberry. So you could really change this up depending on what colors you use, but look at when you add that third detail. It looks so, what's the word for it? Almost like Victorian, so fantastic. Okay, now this is the smaller detail for the left and right. These are all labeled on the stamp set, so if you have any trouble, you can refer to the packaging. Now I cut a smaller oval out of Artichoke cardstock, and I'm going to use the Rosemal Reflections details die and do two small floral clusters on this dark green kind of background. So for the greenery, I'm doing Lemongrass cardstock, which is kind of a light limey, and it really pops on this dark artichoke background. And then I'm going to stick with the same type of color palette for the blooms, Sorbet, Poppy, and Cranberry. So the border was using the inks, and now for the center, I'm using the cardstocks. Did I mention it's all Concord 9th? Okay, so you've got your Poppy middle, and then the little center out of Cranberry, and these kind of fit right in the little slits. So you can slide it in so that little bit of Cranberry kind of peeps out, and it's just, everything's so well thought out. Okay, so this is a very symmetrical card. Whatever I do on the top, I'm going to do on the bottom, type of a deal. And then you have all these little teeny tiny flowers, which I'm going to cut a bunch of those with Poppy and Cranberry. So taking these off camera and just cutting a bunch of little blooms to fill in the rest of the design. Once I get all the little blooms die cut, I'm going to start gluing them to this lemongrass backer. I'm using the Pawsitively Perfect craft glue. And then, but for the next layer, I'm going to pop it up with a 3D foam square to give it a little dimension. Why not? You know, because dimension is life. Okay, gluing on all the little blooms. I kind of mix and match. Some are cranberry and some are poppy, but just filling them all in. It's very, very easy to do. Everything's so well thought out. You just kind of match up the shapes, like putting together a puzzle piece. Okay, and then I'm going to glue these clusters onto that dark artichoke oval. And I just kind of referred to, I think it was a card that Betsy shared on her blog. Sometimes I have to try to not do what I've seen Betsy do. Do you know what I mean? Because when you see what she makes, you're like, holy smokes. Okay, for a sentiment, I'm going to do just a simple Season's Greetings. I love the curvature on this. There's a coordinating die that's going to cut it out. I stamped that with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then now you could really manipulate this banner if you want to bend it. You could bend it. I kept it just kind of straight. I did put some 3D foam squares. Now I'm taking the largest scalloped oval in the Capsule Basics die set. So this is quite large. I mean, I don't know if you call it 5x7, but it's larger than an A2 size. Okay, see how that looks? And I'm going to glue everything together, all the pieces. So you have all these matted layers, and it just looks so detailed. It's giving me rifle paper, anthropology. Now I'm going to turn this into a shape card. So I have a 8.5 by 11 piece of white cardstock. I'm figuring out how much room I need. So I think I scored this at 5 inches. That gives me a little bit more than I need. And by the way, this is, I think this is hammer mill. So it's not super extremely thick. And now here's how you make a shape card. You just let that hang off the edge just ever so slightly, and that will keep your hinge together. So now you have this scalloped shape card, and then you could glue your green, your finished product panel onto this, and now you have a beautiful scalloped oval shape card. This is so special. I want to do this in so many different color combinations. But here I wanted to show you, I used the Avriel large stamp and die storage pockets, and then these little magnetic sheets. Both of these I buy off of Amazon. I can put links in my description. I'm not an affiliate with Amazon, but I'll just leave the links, what I've purchased. Highly recommend. I don't do this for everything, only the ones that I have gone to time and time again, and I know I will continue to. And it just makes it so much easier. And it looks nice too. It looks like you got your life together. I don't label it. I mean, I don't have enough energy for that. Plus, I kept the insert there, like the Greetery packaging, so it kind of has the name there. Now I'm using some Altenew enamel dots. I rummaged through to try to find a match, because I wanted to add an embellishment, but I didn't want to introduce another color. But I love how this looks. What do you think? I mean, I want to do one of these in blue, and it would look like Spode China. I think I'm going to do it one of these days. But check out the Greetery, the new Rosemal Reflections. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.